everybody to TekTaurus Education. This is our demo session for business analyst and QA training. And thank you for attending today, taking the time to come here and join us online. Thank you for your introductions. I will briefly give an introduction about myself now. So my name is Ruchi Gupta. I have been working in the technology industry as a programmer, then a business analyst, then a project manager, program manager for over 17 years. Most of my experience is based in large financial institutions in New York City. Then a couple of years ago, I decided not to do that commute anymore. So now I work for a startup company and I'm thoroughly enjoying that experience. I have extensive experience in the entire software development lifecycle, starting both in waterfall and agile methodologies. As I told you before, I started off my career as a developer, and then I progressed in the food chain. I am certified by PMI, which is Program Management Institute, as a project manager, program manager, risk manager, and agile certified practitioner. So I have 4 professional certifications from PMI. I'll be happy to share copies and show you my certificates if you like. But I am also a very passionate teacher. I love to teach, coach. This is something I just do for my own fun. I like to do it. So, on the weekends, I try to spend my time here I teach a business analyst course and a PMP course here with TekTaurus, and I also have other side interests outside of this, but out of all these 4 lines of work, I am I'm a very big advocate of risk management. So that's my personal preference. I am an IT risk manager by profession. That's how you would call it. That's the work I do for currently in my day job. I am an IT risk manager. Okay. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. We will quickly go into our training material today. So brief history of training solutions. When I started out a long time ago, the environment was very, very forgiving. We were expected to learn from our mistakes, learn from our jobs. I was very fortunate to have excellent mentors as my managers and coaches on the job, and information was shared freely. We had a very diverse group of people, and it was a very team-oriented environment. Really didn't feel the need to have any formal training at that time. I personally learned majority of the stuff on the job initially. As time went on, I think the market became a little bit more competitive. And that's when the era of package training started. I started getting into the PMP certifications and agile certifications, package trainings. PMI became very popular, PABOK, PMBOK. Essentially, these training packages were developed by educators and consultants to encapsulate industry-specific best practices and standards. So every, large companies that I worked for had their own PMO offices, program management offices, and we used to get best practices and standards trickled down from our PMO offices for our use in different divisions and departments based on our functional areas. That's how we were standardizing on our practices internally. But then the era of package training started, where these organizations also wanted to do some competitor analysis. What's happening in the market? What's the best practice in the industry? What can we adopt from, what can we learn from other people's mistakes or competitors' mistakes? So how can we stay ahead of the curve? So the market became a little bit more competitive, and the era of package training started. And now we feel we are in the era of applied learning. Although package training is still very popular, you could take Udemy courses for the price of lunch. You have so many online resources. We live in an era of information revolution, so there is no dearth of information. But then I feel now we're at the era of applied learning. Means the focus is now on applied aspects of generally accepted standards. We know what the industry standards are now. You can purchase the PMBOK, you can purchase the BABOK, you can have access to these resources. But then those resources are going to tell you industry best practice tools, techniques. But then how are those tools and techniques applied in our day-to-day environment? That's what actually we try to focus on this in this training class. So not only are you going to learn about the industry standard tools and techniques, which is the base starting point, obviously, but then we try to customize, tailor, and adapt these tools and techniques to suit the various needs of the project. So we cover multitude of examples and cover the same problem from different viewpoints and different stakeholders, different viewpoints, so that you get a full understanding of the situation and you can analyze it from different aspects to see how those techniques are customized and tailored in different situations. So let's say there's a technique called RECOME matrix, which talks about who is responsible, who is accountable, who is informed, and who should be consulted. It's a matrix, and we'll cover these details. It's just an example. If we have a tool, then we will see how that little matrix can be used in a small-scale team environment, in a medium-sized project, in a large-scale environment, how the same tool can be used under various circumstances and adapted so that you have an idea of when you're on the job. Think of yourself, you are like, a contractor you have a big tool belt. Then your job is to know for which particular problem, which type of solution should be employed. So since we are covering both waterfall and agile-based techniques, and then you will know in which situation, which tools and techniques to apply, then when you are on your job, you can use this training to guide you to use the best tool for the problem at hand and solve it accordingly. So not every technique is useful in every situation. So majority of the examples that we are going to cover are situational, behavioral. So not just the qualitative aspect of things, but also the quantitative aspect of things. Not just objective way of looking things, but also subjective way of looking things. Because as a business analyst, you need to be able to understand various viewpoints of your stakeholders who may have competing or different needs and requirements. So we will be doing that kind of assessment on every tool and technique that we cover. Okay. Any questions so far? Let's keep moving. What does this course cover? This curriculum, step by step, covers the business analysis concepts and their associated practical techniques as applied in both traditional waterfall and agile-based methodology. So you will hear a lot about these terms in this course, waterfall, agile, and it's a whole alphabet soup of tools, techniques, and terminology that you will be getting exposed to. Don't worry, we will be going through each and every of these, the terminology. You will get very well versed in the vocabulary. Yes. So the vocabulary will become second nature to you. 32 hours is a lot. 32 hours of you hearing me talk about all this will certainly, yes. We call it osmotic communication. You will start to absorb some of it little by little. You will, these terms will not be foreign to you, I promise. So this slide is a little complicated, but essentially it is trying to summarize two little things for you. When we are in a waterfall methodology, we go from analysis to design to implementation to testing to deployment. These are different stages of software development lifecycle. So SDLC is another term that we will be using, software development lifecycle. So software development generally happens in various phases. We do analysis, then we have to design our solution. Then obviously execution means implementation. what we have implemented, we are going to test it, and then we are going to deploy it to production, means release it. We are going to go through a release cycle. In traditional waterfall methodologies, we go step by step. We start our design after our analysis is almost complete or nearly complete. So it sort of is like a cascading model. Whereas in agile-based methodologies, although the steps remain the same, they're a little bit cyclical. In the sense we take small components of a problem. Instead of taking the entire problem space and designing a long-term solution, saying, oh, it's a year and a half project with 4 months analysis and 3 months design and 6 months implementation, instead of having big chunks of work going in waterfall, we take the same amount of work, but then we slice it into small components and say we are going to, let's say, if we have to design a website, instead of having the fully functional website in 1.5 years, we will do it in small pieces. Let's say if we are designing a website to sell some products. So we will have a very simplistic skeleton functional website where we are going to sell only, let's say clothing. Then we will add shoes later. We'll have cosmetics later. So we go by product, or however you want to slice and dice your project. But small pieces of functionality we take, and then we incrementally deliver those pieces of functionality using the cyclical cycle. So the process remains the same. We will do analysis, design, implementation, testing, and deployment, but on small chunks of functionality, maybe 6 weeks worth of work, 8 weeks, 2 months, small deliverables we will be putting in. So here in waterfall methodologies, our scope is fixed, means our end goal is fixed, and our cost and our schedule is what we vary, whether we are going to do it in a year and a half, we are going to do it 10 resources, 5 resources. It's plan driven. We plan for a target in the future, and then we try to meet that target. So our performance, we are judging our performance based on whether we meet that planned target or not. Whereas in agile methodologies, this is called the traditional triangle of constraints between scope, cost, and schedule. In agile methodologies, the entire triangle is reversed, where we are saying, well, we're not 100% sure of what our scope is going to be, but our cost and schedule will fix it. Let's say we will say every month, every third Wednesday, we will have a release. And in that release, incrementally, whatever little functionality we have, we will continuously deliver it. So we don't have a end target in mind, let's say a year and a half or 2-year project or end goal clearly defined. It is a little bit uncertain. There is more risk. But then the small deliverables that we have are production ready. Those pieces of functionality that we add every month are usable components of work that our users can actually drive value from. They're value driven, meaning we are generating business value with every release. Okay, so when we in this course we will be covering these all the business analyst techniques, both based on traditional plan driven methodologies as well as value driven methodologies. How these techniques differ, pros, cons, and their advantages and disadvantages, we will be covering them as well.
Excuse me, I have a question. Do some industries lean more to agile and others to waterfall? Is there any pattern to which techniques they prefer?
That's a very good question. These days, regardless of the industry, there's a lot of focus in the market towards the agile-based methodologies. Believe it or not, the PMP course that is going on right now, as of March 26th, even the Project Management Institute, the Project Management course, they have combined the PM box to include both the waterfall and agile methodologies. We don't talk about it separately anymore. We say that our professionals are well versed in both ends of, think of it as ends of the spectrum, two ends of the spectrum. Waterfall is one edge and agile is another edge, and there are other methodologies in between, incremental, iterative, things like that. Those also a little bit we will cover in our course, just to give you an idea what's the difference between them. But you as a practitioner, you can say in your interview or in or to your prospective employers that you have uh, fundamental knowledge of both the techniques, and depend, and believe it or not, even if an organization says, oh, we are all agile, we fully adopted agile methodologies, uh, especially the larger organizations, if they have historical components, historical baggage that they're carrying, some of their applications still will be working on waterfall methodologies. And this is not to say old versus new, that's the wrong way to classify them. I personally believe it is very important for us to learn both, because if we know, see, there are very good lessons we can learn from waterfall methodologies. If we know that how traditionally a project is being should be planned, if ideally we had all the time and the resources to do something correctly, how would we do it? We would do it in using waterfall methodologies. Because we live in an era where everything needs to be done yesterday. We are all, when a project is approved and authorized, it's already past its due date. That's the reality of the times we live in. So to be more competitive in the marketplace, to be more what should I say, responsive to the needs of the market. Majority of the industries that were even, traditionally, let's say defense industry or government industries, government projects or construction projects, even the industries that were traditionally using waterfall are adopting some components of agile methodologies where they see some uncertainty and risk. And we will cover this risk component a little bit, and we will also cover the definition of official project as per as PMI. So we will understand in which cases it's better for us to go with agile methodologies versus waterfall. So we will get that understanding. But overall, majority of the industries in the market today, especially the ones where the release turnaround times are small, are leaning towards agile methodologies and practices. Maybe for certain aspects of their projects, they are still using waterfall approaches, and that's what we call hybrid. So you as a professional business analyst or a professional project manager, always try to position yourself in the middle. If we try to, lean on one side versus the other very heavily, then our perspective also gets skewed. As a business analyst, we're the middleman between the technology team and the business side. Similarly, when it comes to waterfall versus agile, try to take the middle path, hybrid, where we feel we need to you adopt waterfall components, we will. Where we feel we need to adopt agile components, we will. We are flexible. So we're not really married to any one side of the equation. It really depends on the circumstances. That's why this, I'm laying all this background for you, that as a business analyst, use the tool set situationally. Yes, many industries claim to be agile. Great. There's nothing wrong with that label. Either way, labels are not important. Ultimately, the work needs to get done. And if you have good understanding of the fundamentals, you will be able to navigate the waters without any trouble.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on this slide? We move ahead. Okay, quickly. This is just the icebreaker slide. What is analysis? What does analysis mean to you? What type of information is being analyzed? Believe it or not, analysis means many different things to many different people. If I ask this question, people come from many different areas, and you can see little snippets of information on this slide. It can go from data to workflow to process improvement. Analysis could be applied to a very wide domain. And what I want to clarify here is that this course is not a data intensive course. So you see this little image here. Some of the business analysts who are more heavily involved with technology. The technical business analysts, they're very, it's this field, this has become a field in itself, like data mining, data analysis, data analytics. This course is not a data analytics course. We're not covering SQL here. We're not covering databases. We're not covering querying and modeling techniques here. This is not a data analytics course. This is more of a functional business analyst course where we will be covering some aspects of research, some aspects of analytics, but we're not doing a programming-based business analysis. This is more about workflow, documentation, procedures, systems, process improvements, and things like that. Information processing, basically. Functional business analyst. So I just want to make sure this aspect is clear to you. What this course is and what it isn't.
Sorry, I had a question, ma'am.
Yes.
Sorry, I had a question for the other, like before we had discussed about the agile and the waterfall technology method. So which
Yes.
one is right now is the demand in the market right now? Like people using agile or waterfall?
Agile is very heavily, in the market. It's very popular these days. Majority of the teams will say that they have adopted some components of agile methodology, even though they may be doing some traditional stuff. So that's why in this course we will be covering both to give you an idea. And it's not to say that the waterfall is old and people are not using it. It's the foundation. You cannot build a huge building without laying the foundation. You need the foundational components. You need the components to know what should be planned for. And if we don't have the time, that's fine. We don't have to do a year and a half planning. We can do similar steps in 6 weeks. It's just it's going to be a little bit more pared down. It's more of a cyclical cycle. So agile is very, very popular. That's where the focus is. But we cover both components in this course, just so that you also know the background, the foundational components, and there are many good practices that we can borrow from waterfall that we can build upon with agile. So let's say the new graduates coming from school, if they're only learning about agile, I feel they're missing something. Over time, they will see that certain components of waterfall are also very helpful. So we shouldn't forget about our past, our foundational components. Yes, it's good for you as a practitioner to have understanding about both, and then obviously you can make a choice as to what you want to do, how your team is performing, what your long-term goals are for your organization, and then adapt accordingly.
Okay.
Okay.
And last question, like what is the real-time scenario? Like that is the most important thing, because the training is a different story. If you go to the real-time scenario, it's like environment is totally changed, because they are accepting we have some experience, so they have more demanding as a fresher. So like real-time scenario is like how is working in real time, because real time we are facing any problem and we don't have knowledge in the past, because we are not used to work with the business analysis. So how to solve the problem on the job?
We will be covering examples, Jay, and I'll be giving you lots of templates. And in fact, we will be walking through some of those templates. And this training is very market ready, right? So none of the content here is stale. You will see whatever tools and techniques that are being used in the market is what we cover here. We try to keep it as competitive as possible. If something new has come in, you want me to cover something that you're using right now in your job, let me know and I can include it. So the idea is to be able to, teach you what is the most relevant for you as of today. This course is not a stale course at all.
Okay.
Okay. So if you want me to include something that you think would be helpful, I'll be happy to.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So let's move on. This introduction, we will be covering what is the role of a business analyst, why become a business analyst, who makes a good business analyst, project team and software development lifecycle, role of a business analyst in various SDLC phases, how a project kicks off, and if you join the project midway, which most of us do, it's very, in practical life, it's not, it does not necessarily happen that when the project kickoff meeting is happening, you are there. The project is already underway when you are hired or you join somewhere in the middle. So we will cover that scenario. And we will end the intro class after these 7 topics. And then if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer after that. And then I will see you next week. Okay. So high level, role of a business analyst is to understand the business, their processes, rules and requirements. So understanding the business rules, the operating environment is a very big part of what a business analyst does. So think of a business analyst, you as a person who is the liaison, as the interface between the business users and the technology team. So you have to have some understanding of the business, the current business, how the business operates, how they generate the revenue, what their risks are, where are their, the sources of their funding, budgeting, or how the business works. So working closely and with your users and understanding the business processes, the current limitations of the environment, how things can be improved. Let's say a longer term roadmap of where the organization wants to go. So the big picture view, basically, from a user standpoint, you need to have, because you need to represent this to the IT teams at all levels. So the technology teams have their own view into the implementation. They're only worried about the current approved projects and the implementation of those projects. That's the technology team's view. But as a business analyst, you have a broader view. You have a view of what are the projects that are in the pipeline, right? The funding sources. The IT team is only working on approved projects, but you as a business analyst are doing various types of analysis, scenario analysis on what is the most viable solution, what is the optimal solution, what is the minimum viable product, or what is the best case scenario if we have all the resources and the time. What is our strategic plan, what is our tactical plan, and then what is our most likely plan. So you as a business analyst, our voice, you have made your name as a business analyst when your opinion is valued. In the sense, you're doing scenario analysis, you know the strategic plan, you know what needs to be done tactically to solve the problem now, and then you also have a recommended approach. So as a BA, you have a lot of value in your organization, because majority of the time management would be flipping through the presentation that you have prepared to find out what is the recommended solution from the BA. Yes, because you will know what the risks are, what the different viewpoints are, and your opinion carries a lot of weight. Because you have an understanding of the business processes, you also have understanding of some of the technical processes. And then eventually you become a subject matter expert for the rest of the IT team because of that higher level understanding, the analysis powers that you have. It's a very rich and fulfilling role, I feel, and you have a very good, shot at success. I know of a business analyst who works in a software company where we have this antivirus software company. The business analyst role in that organization is very highly elevated, right? They're subject matter experts. They know what they're talking about. So if you start off as a junior business analyst, trying to get an understanding of what your users want, what the processes are. Eventually, you gain enough mastery over the business processes, the IT processes, to become actually a subject matter expert and a voice of reason in your organization. Okay, so it's a full-blown career path. It's not a job. There is no limitation to what you can do with it. What this BA BOC will take you, where it will take you, you will have the knowledge, and then when you apply it, the BA BOC, it remains the same for entry-level business analyst to a business analyst who has 10, 15 years experience. The guide is the same. Only the applied knowledge, the scale of the projects that you work on, the complexity of the projects that you work on, and the number of people that you interface with, only that increases. The level of responsibility increases. The tools and techniques remain the same. What you will learn in the course, the core techniques all remain the same. The BA box, the ECBA exam versus the CWAP exam. Doesn't matter, there are 4 levels of certification exams in the business analyst domain. The reference guide is exactly the same for all the 4 exams. The only thing that changes between those exams is the number of years of experience that you have and your applied knowledge based on the complexity and the size of the projects that you're handling. That's the only thing that changes. So the tools and techniques that you learn, they all remain the same, and then you just climb up the ladder based on your how much experience you gain, how much exposure you have, and the level of responsibility that you carry in the organization, in your project. Okay, so that's the role of a business analyst. Why become a business analyst? This is my favorite slide. I know we're running a little bit over time, so I'm going to try to wrap up quickly. A good business analyst does not necessarily need to be technically strong. No coding, QA, architecture, no technical experience is required. It's not a prerequisite. Generally, we'll wrap up.
All right, no problem.
A BA job can usually not be outsourced of the organization. Why? Because you are working. Karen and Jay.
Jay.
J-A-I, Jay. Sorry about the interruption. A business analyst job usually cannot be outsourced. Why? Because you are working closely with your business users. You have to be where your users are. So this is not a job that, you know, that can be taken and sent over overseas. Generally, users like to interface with the business analysts on a day-to-day basis. They want to be engaged. You want to be engaged with their processes. Job shadow them. Get to know your organization. On the contrary, a lot of business development and QA jobs are outsourced, because once the requirements are done, then for implementation, they can be packaged and sent over to a lower cost, or they can even be outsourced to a fixed price contract to a consulting firm. But the requirements are generally not outsourced. They can be many times. You know, very large consulting firms will take full-blown packaged end-to-end project deals where they will also do the requirements. But generally, users feel more comfortable if some level of independent analysis has been done outside of what the consulting firm is doing to understand the requirements and the scope internally, and then they are willing to outsource the implementation of the project, but they want to have some level of control of how the requirements are done. And then working closely with subject matter experts as a business analyst gives them that level of comfort. So kind of it's job security.
Can I just ask one quick question? I'm sorry. Is it possible to become a consultant as a business analyst?
Absolutely, absolutely, very much so. So this material is equally relevant and valid for you, whether you're applying for a full-time role as a business analyst in any of these organizations, or you're working as an independent consultant, or you're working for a consulting firm. Either way.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Sure. In any project, the role of a business analyst tends to have the longest tenure, as a business analyst is involved in almost each phase of the project. As we will see this as the course progresses, a business analyst is involved before the project even kicks off. Remember, as I said, you have to do the pre-analysis, where the return of investment. Maybe 5 projects you will analyze and only 1 will get budgeted. So you are doing all that work up front before even the development team is involved. Then when project starts, obviously you have to do the requirements. You're working with the development team to ensure that the product is developed as per specification. And then guess what? It doesn't get there. Every successful project has iterations and phases. You do that. You will have bug fixes. You will have enhancements. You will have operations coming up with all kinds of new ideas that have to be filtered back into the project. So if your project is successful, you will have plenty of enhancements coming up for later. And each time a business analyst is involved, not only to do the requirements, but also to do impact analysis. If one thing changes, what are the 5 other things that will get impacted, small or big? The developer can say, this is just a 2-line code change for me, and it will take me only, whatever, 2 hours to do it. A QA team can say we will take 2 days to test it, but only a business analyst can fully say what is the impact of a certain process change. So the change control process in the change control board, where you're doing integration with many different systems and components, a business analyst role is crucial because you would know the interconnectivity points and the impact of the change, upstream, downstream, trickle-down impact of that change. It is not just about changing a line of code. If a formula is changing, what else could get impacted? So a business analyst for small enhancements and change requests is very much involved in doing the impact analysis, which carries a lot of weight. So that's why I think business analysts will be in demand for a very long time to come, because no matter which job can be outsourced, users like to work closely with BAs. Okay, who makes a good business analyst? We have to rush through, sorry, these slides. You will get them in a packet. Analytical thinking, communication skills, documentation skills, and my favorite one, ability to ask questions. Why? Even if that means questioning a process that is followed for many years in an organization, ability to ask those questions and challenge the norm, thinking outside the box, active listening skills, observation skills are very, very crucial. You know, why a certain process is being done a certain way. Only when you question why, you can find a reason how you can improve it. Right? Team on your project. Certainly, you will have lots and lots of people involved in your project, from project managers to, you know, solution architects, developers. We will be covering all these roles in our course. How a project kicks off. Sorry, I have to rush through. The idea is we will go through this whole process of how a project kicks off. It's software development life cycles, role of a business analyst in these SDLC phases, and if you join a project midway, what are you supposed to do? How are you going to work through that? Understanding the current as-is system, and then playing around with the application, getting to know the current documentation, your applications, and then getting to know the people that are involved in the team, so that you get an idea of the application that is being developed. But sorry, I have to rush through this because we are running out of time. We will be covering all this in detail in our program. Okay, so you know, I rushed through last few slides, but when we start our session, I will recap some of this and then continue forward. Yeah, no worry. And you will get all this material, all the slides, the 4 zip files every week, whatever material we cover, examples, software and application documentation. You will be getting all that as a packet for you to keep, and you will also be getting the recording. Okay. Any questions you have for me? Yeah, I know. It's a lot. Yeah. Jay, Karen, anything you want to